I think that for all of us, that we have an obligation. We have a responsibility. If we don't do it, then nobody's going to do it. We have a special, not only responsibility, but a special opportunity to make a difference in the world and make a difference for this country. And that's really what I come to say to you. I think of what Archimedes said, and perhaps it's a little explaining the lever. And he said, show me where I can stand and I can move the world. I don't think it's just a question of political belief, but I think that we can make a difference.
My name is Sarah Ray Perman. I'm the rabbi at Congregation Emmanuel Israel in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
My name is Imam Abdul Sami Tadeshe. I am an Imam at the Islamic Center of Pittsburgh.
My name is Monsignor Roger Statnick, and I'm the pastor of Blessed Sacrament Cathedral in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
The idea of Judaism, one of the basic ideas of Judaism, is the concept of making the world a little better than the way we found it. In Hebrew, it's called tikkun olam. It means repairing or improving the world. We have the idea in Judaism that the world is not complete, and it's our job to continue the process of completion. So by giving back to the community, by helping the community, by doing acts of what we call in Hebrew tzedakah, or what often gets mistranslated as charity, that's one of the ways that we are involved in this process of tikkun olam.
It is important in Islam to give back to your community in general, because the notion of giving back is an intricate part of Islamic practices and belief. Therefore, every verse in the Quran that talks about worship, at least 90% of the time, juxtaposes giving back to the community and being nice to the needy with worshiping God Almighty.
To not give back would in some way divide us rather than help us to live together. I think the more profound reason for us as Christians and Catholics is that we believe that there's a bond in God that unites us to other human beings. And in order to make that bond real and specific, we need to help each other.
The Hebrew word tzedakah means doing the right thing. It's somebody who is a tzaddik, is somebody who is righteous, somebody who is doing something that is correct. It is not just the act of giving money, which charity often is seen as, but it's also the idea of righteous deeds, of helping people, of going that extra distance, so to speak. There is also the idea of tzedakah, of really helping individuals, whereas charity has a sense of doing it because you feel a love, a care in your heart to do it. The tzedakah we understand as being commanded. Whether you want to do it or not, you have to do it. So it has a different concept in Judaism. There are different levels of tzedakah. There's the concept of giving because you want to, or you have to, and you do it begrudgingly, but there's also the highest levels, the idea of helping somebody really stand on the feet on their own.
In Islam, there are 5 pillars of Islam. And one of these 5 pillars is called zakah, which means charity, or compulsory charity, or mandatory tax. which has to be given out by anyone who fulfills the conditions. And conditions are as follows. Every Muslim who has, at least here in the United States of America, $1,000 for 12 consecutive months must give 2.5% of that amount out in charity or as tax, which is mandatory. To the extent that not doing so will invite the wrath of God, not only in this world, even in the hereafter.
I guess the fundamental teaching is that God is love, and those who love God love each other. And then there's certainly a text in St. Matthew's Gospel that's probably the most telling, the text where the parable is told, when did I see you naked or hungry or in need or in prison, and we did not serve you, or we did serve you? And Jesus responds and says, whenever you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. So that sort of becomes kind of a paradigm text for how charity fits into our faith. You really can't claim to be faithful unless you're trying to make that faith real by what you do with your brothers and sisters. And St. James says in his text that faith without works is empty. So it's pretty fundamental to our faith. And subsequently, the church has taught about the need for a social consciousness and social justice and a sense of each other as we go about making our decisions about how to order our lives and order our societies.
When things were falling apart in the former Yugoslavia, there's an organization called the Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, and they were able to bring in medicine and food. Specifically, it was to help originally the elderly Jews who lived in the former Yugoslavia, but in reality, they were able to reach out to all the groups that were involved in the conflict.
We have a collection every month precisely for the social ministry dimension of our community, and we have a special project called the Bethlehem Project, which is to help prevent homelessness in our local community. We also do programs through Catholic Charities to support energy assistance in the wintertime, or special needs that aren't covered by other maybe programs that the government might sponsor, but people sometimes fall through the cracks, and we try to do something about that.
For several years now, at our Jewish High Holidays, which are coming up, we have run a food drive to help collect food for the Westmoreland County Food Bank. One of our high holidays, Yom Kippur, is a day on which we fast, and so we encourage people as they're fasting to think about the fact that there are others who don't have enough to eat, and therefore we ask them to bring in food. All year round, we actually have a table in the back of our the staircase that leads downstairs in the building that we ask people to bring in food on a regular basis.
If you wish, you can call it Islamic social welfare system. Here at the Islamic Center, we have monthly food program, which includes distribution of food on all necessary household needs to needy families who must register with us, and they can come and get enough food for their families once in every month. And this is not specific for the Muslims. Any person in need in this city of Pittsburgh, PA, can come and be part of this food program.
We've also tried to do some special efforts to support the local food banks. You know, the economy at this time is very, very difficult for people, and a lot of people are feeling strains who didn't feel strains before.
In addition to that, every summer we also organize summer school for children, and half of these children cannot afford to pay for their own summer programs. The Islamic Center raised money for them to pay for these children so they can enjoy the summer program also with the rest of their peers.
Last year and this year, we're going to be collecting used eyeglasses for the Lions Club. And this year, we're also collecting school supplies for Welcome Home, which is a family shelter here in Greensburg. In addition, twice a year now, we do what I've called snow bags, which are ready-to-eat foods that are distributed to patrons of Meals on Wheels in the Tri-City area of the Westmoreland County. I think it's called Tri-City Meals on Wheels because I believe it covers Greensburg, Jeanette, and Irwin. And we do about over 100 bags each time. We also have a mitzvah day, mitzvah being the word commandment, where we've gone out into the community and helped on a variety of levels. Last year we went to Westmoreland Manor to help with bingo games, worked in different nursing homes, wrote letters to soldiers in the military. We also have participated in the crop walk on different levels, whether it's just myself sometimes or actually members of the congregation and people supporting me in the walk.
We're about to have a 5K race next week for Labor Day to support our homeless program, and I'll be there, not running, but walking. At Christmas time, we have a pretty big program of reaching out to people and trying to give them a little extra for the holidays, and I try to be part of that program.
As an individual, believe it or not, I do this almost every time. In this city of Pittsburgh, there are several mosques or masajid where many of the congregants in those communities do not have enough funds. And I just issued a check, which I do as much as I can personally, to give to these communities so they may help themselves and help some of their congregants. I've done this in many cases, and I've just done it 2 days ago.
Every Shabbat, every Sabbath, before I light my Sabbath candles in preparation for Shabbat at home, we have a tzedakah box. We have several tzedakah boxes in our home, and we put money in the tzedakah box. And then every so often, usually twice a year, I would say, before the Jewish high holidays and before Passover, I go through the money and count it up and then distribute it to some kind of agency. We also had a bowling activity where we paid monies based on how people bowled to different organizations, and the people could decide what organization they wanted their bowling dollars to go to.
I volunteer at Excella Westmoreland Hospital at the front desk, giving patient information. I'm also an ambassador, which means I go in to visit patients when they're first admitted to the hospital to make sure they're comfortable. The Jewish volunteers generally go in on Christmas Day to relieve the regular volunteers, and I was placed at the front desk and I thoroughly enjoyed my experience, so now I volunteer there. But the volunteers that go there fulfill all the other roles that the volunteers fill on a regular basis. And we do it very gladly, and we've been doing it, I believe, for about 30 years now at various hospitals in this area and in Pittsburgh.
When my mother was very seriously ill before she died, people reached out and brought us meals to the home. I mean, it's a very difficult time when somebody's dying. There's a lot of energy, a lot of focus on the person who's dying, and sometimes the normal tasks of life get forgotten, or you just don't even have time for them. And people stepped in, particularly I remember that bringing meals to the door, and that was such a great help for me and my dad and anybody who came to visit.
My son has certainly benefited from tzedakah dollars in terms of being able to go attend camp.
When I was doing my master's degree, and I met this doctor from the United Emirates, and I was in need of the money to finish paying for my school. I got some help from some friends, but I needed $3,000 to pay for my very last semester so I can graduate. I called this friend, Dr. Saud from the United Arab Emirates, and I just met him some years before that. Him and his younger brother, Sheikh Mohammed bin Chaid al-Qasimi, and he just gave me one single phone call. He sent me a money, $3,000, which enabled me to graduate, to get my master's degree in 2004 from Cleveland State University.
I think what charity can do is to remind people, no matter what their customs, what their beliefs, what their particular style of life is, that we do share humanity. And then when it comes down to basics, we all need food and shelter, and we need to feel safe. We need to be clothed. We need to have medical care. There's some very basic things that sort of unite us if we just look beyond, I think, our differences or our styles or our language or our background. And usually when people are in need, it kind of cuts through those things.
I have a sense that as we have reached out more and more to the community has become more aware of the Jewish community here in Westmoreland County. And so I think that there's the understanding that we are not isolated, that we don't exist in a vacuum. I think people begin to see us as other people.
There's no question that charity breaks down barriers between cultures or among cultures. At the very beginning of propagation of Islam in Mecca, many of the Muslims were very poor. Many of the Muslims were the lowest of the lowest in Meccan society. And the people of Quraysh, who are the ethnic or the tribes in which Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him himself, is from, they were punishing these kind of Muslims because they have few, if any, in terms of provision. And Prophet Muhammad sent them to a Christian king in Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia of today. And they were sent there, and he told them, there is a Christian king in Abyssinia or Ethiopia. No one is wrong in his kingdom. And those Muslims went there, and they were given very good welcome, very good hospitality, to the fact that he himself saw the goodness in Islam and embraced Islam. However, the point here is that the fact that Prophet Muhammad, Muslim, sent his companions to a Christian king who welcomed them and gave them place to stay in Abyssinia in Africa. And this was way before the time Muslims actually went to Medina or Yathrib, northern part of Mecca.
I've been, I guess, fortunate or unfortunate to be part of, to be in situations where there have been some horrible disasters, fires and hurricanes, floods, and I noticed that in those situations it brings out the best in people, also sometimes brings out the worst in people, and I think charity calls forth the best.
On the flip side, part of what our purpose with our young people is to make them aware that there are many ways in which they can help others. Initially, when we ask them where they want their tzedakah money to go, we either hear Children's Hospital or the zoo or something to do with animals. So we've tried to broaden their understanding of how tzedakah money works and where it can go. As an example, our Hebrew teacher made the youngsters aware of a program where it's in Israel. I don't know if it's a specific artist or several, but these are people who are physically handicapped and paint with their feet. And so the youngsters, when they saw some of the artwork that these artists had done, they were willing then to send their money to this program. And help these artists be able to support themselves. So that's an idea of where it breaks down a lot of barriers and how people see things.
Here in the city of Pittsburgh, there is an organization called PIN, in which Islamic Center of Pittsburgh is a member. We have worked with different faith groups in different projects, and we have break down a couple of barriers that existed prior to that. And this simply again showed that when it becomes a collaboration between two different faith groups, the notion of barrier itself no longer exists, even if it was in existence before. Because when you have a person from this faith or that faith sitting together, looking at each other in the face or in the eyes, and talking about common grounds, whether they are drinking coffee or they are sharing a bread or something of that nature, it definitely speaks louder than trying to conversate or dialogue on any other topic, because they can see the commonality of humanity in their get-together and conversation.
I have a very strong commitment to those who are homeless, those who have nowhere else to go, and particularly women and children who are so very vulnerable in the world.
Our world is a lot more complex today than it used to be. And because of that, oftentimes the problems are so large that no one organization, particularly a volunteer or a nonprofit organization, can address the problems. So in those situations, you need a bigger organization, a bigger entity, and sometimes government might be that. My problem is that sometimes just allowing the government to do that makes it too anonymous, makes it too bureaucratic, certainly builds sometimes waste into the effort to get charity to people, but also it tends to blunt the force of charity, as I said, to make us realize that we are all one and that we share some very basic needs together, and that the call of our brothers and sisters in their need can be a call to help us to, in a sense, develop our own minds and hearts. And when the government does that, you miss that opportunity.
I think to some degree, as we've seen the government pull back from a lot of agencies, there are a lot of agencies that are hurting. I've been specifically involved with the Blackburn Center, which is the Center Against Domestic Abuse here in Greensburg. And I know that the cuts in funding have affected them, and it's affected a lot of other organizations, our public libraries, for example. There needs to be that involvement from government, I believe, as well.
Looking at the situation here in the United States, where there is a division between state and church, so to speak, you can see that it doesn't really exist in reality, because we found administrations like the Bush administration and this current Obama administration continuously funding the faith-based initiative. Not only that, in the White House, there were employees of the government whose job is to advise government on how to deal with these faith-based groups. Because in a country where the majority of the people, or at least half of the people, are very religious, government may not do without helping those organizations.
I think sometimes people see the heritage of the Catholic Church and they think, oh, it's this great, big, rich organization, because the Catholic Church has been around for 2,000 years, and because it's been the guardian of civilization and heritage of many, many peoples for centuries and millennia, actually. So they see some of these, the results of that, artwork, buildings, architecture, that everybody thinks, well, this church is just rich. But I have to remember that those parts of our church are really trying to preserve a heritage and preserve a culture, and preserve a legacy for all humanity.
The biggest misconception is perhaps the notion of jihad. Jihad in Islam is misunderstandably translated to mean holy war, and there's no such thing in Islam. There's no such thing as holy war in Islam. Jihad simply means struggle. If a Muslim man struggles to give food or drink to a non-Muslim man, that is an act of jihad. And there are many ahadith or traditions or quotations from Prophet Muhammad himself. One case, a woman who was a prostitute will be in paradise. You won't believe this, because she gave water to a dog thirsty. A dog was thirsty, and this prostitute woman gave drink to this dog, and as a result of that, that woman is going to be in paradise, despite the fact that she was a prostitute.
If anything, maybe there's the idea that we only give within our own community. Certainly, there's the idea that charity begins at home. And if we don't take care of ourselves, who is going to take care of us? There's a Talmudic verse, if I am not for myself, who am I? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not, now when? The Jewish community on many levels is involved in helping beyond the Jewish community. I gave you the example of the Jewish Joint Distribution Committee as one that helps not only Jews in isolated communities around the world, but others as well. I don't know if it made the local press. There were recently 2 young women from, I don't know if it was Burma or Thailand, who were killed in a car accident in Iowa. And they had actually been helped by Jewish Family and Children's Services as refugees. So the Jewish community in Pittsburgh certainly has been involved in resettling refugees, and not just Jewish refugees, but refugees from around the world that have found their way into the Pittsburgh area.
Some of my favorite charities are ones that help people that are on the fringe of society, such as the homeless, those who really don't have access to many resources at all. And I feel that we need to do as Jesus taught and as Jesus did, and reach out to those people.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, specifically said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you is a good and complete Muslim until he wants for his brother what he wants for himself. And that brotherhood may be a brotherhood in humanity or a brotherhood in faith. That is Islamic understanding or motive when it comes to charity.
I think there is a sense of good feeling that people get when they help.
Oh, I guess human nature is of the sort that I think there's all sorts of motives, and the motives are always mixed. You know, some people are charitable because it's a tax deduction. Some people are charitable because they're trying to win favor of some group or some person. There are all kinds of motives that can play into charity. Sometimes people give in charity so that they can salve their own guilt about something, or think that they're making reparation for something.
Sometimes I think there's an element of guilt, to be honest with you, in terms of tzedakah. At this time of year, we're getting ready for our Jewish high holidays. And we have a very powerful prayer that is recited that says that on Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed, who shall live and who shall die. And then it gives you all the different ways that one could die, by fire, by water, by earthquake, by starving, etc. And then it goes on to say that prayer, I think the order is repentance, prayer, and tzedakah, avert the evil decree.
You know, I sometimes think that the motives don't matter. What matters is that we're helping each other and having an effect.
We're going to have a kitchen shower or house shower for the Blackburn Center. There are also plans to adopt a highway and work in cleaning up a section of one of the roads around here.
We plan to build a couple of new apartments that can be rented to people at low cost, which will generate more rooms for people who are in need of homes.
As we've just made a few changes, though, we're extending the areas that we serve for the homeless program, taking it on a broader geographic area. It's in the kind of the thinking stage, but how do we begin to reach out beyond our local community into a wider national or international scene to help those people in need and to learn from them. Our church has a normal network of international missions, they call it, and we have an appeal to support those missions.
We're always looking for new ideas.
Muslim Alliance in North America, because I'm very familiar with them, and they are building the future by building the correct Islamic understanding in the Muslim youth today in this country.